Alhamdulillahi wahda wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Mudhakkir fa inna dhikra tanfa'ul mu'minin. Sadaqallahul azim. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi. Alhamdulillah, last few weeks we have been trying to address this topic of tazkiyah, purification of our mind and our heart and our soul, and purification of our understanding and our concepts, purification of our behavior, our character, purification of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our relationship with other members of creation. Alhamdulillah, as all of us should know, we have entered the month of Rajab, and this is the month when Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would make dua to Allah ta'ala to grant barakah in this month of Rajab and in this month of Shaban, and that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was hoping that he would reach and see yet another month of Ramadan. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about the fact that everywhere in the world, and obviously the Muslims are affected by this also, people are extremely plugged into news, information, current events, infotainment, websites, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter feeds, and then many other aspects of digital media that I don't even know of. And this makes a person overly connected to this worldly life and to the affairs of the dunya. So on the other extreme, Islam does not say that a person should be completely oblivious and unaware of what's going on in the world, and especially one should be aware of what's going on in the ummah. At the same time, the amount of time people spend surfing and reading these type of news reports has crossed into the hours, whereas at most this is something a person should do a few minutes, and it should not even be something that a person does every day. And if we were to add up all the time that we spent reading news, or even different WhatsApp groups or people's status or different things that we see on the screen, compared to how much time we spend reciting Quran al-Kareem, making dua, making ibadah and zikr, or how much time we spend reading actual books on the deen of Islam, we would realize that we are so obsessed with this screen type of information that we have lost reading books. So many people have so many wonderful books in their own homes, on their own bookshelves, within arm's length reach, but they actually no longer read those books. In fact, most people, if you were to ask them, when was the last time they completed reading an entire book? It can be a short book, doesn't have to be a very thick or dense book, but an entire book on the deen of Islam, very few people even read entire books anymore. But if you ask them, did you watch the entire video, did you read the entire Twitter, did you read the entire Facebook, or did you read the entire article? You can read 100 articles, or you can read one article on coronavirus. It's not going to make a difference to you unless you're in the medical profession, or you're a researcher who's trying to develop or design a cure, or you're in public health. But if you're an ordinary citizen or person like you and me, most of you and me, you don't need to know as much as perhaps the screen is trying to teach you about these things. Whereas our basic understanding of deen remains so minimal. So this then reaches, again, I'm not suggesting all news, all information, but excessive news, excessive information, news and information more than that which we need, more than that which is beneficial to us, even Islamic quotes and apps and videos and status and pictures and short clips, more than is beneficial for us, enters into a category which is called israf, which means to have something in an amount of wasteful excess, to have something which is no longer beneficial. And then, even if it's something good and halal and tayyib and pure, but if it's overdone such that it reaches israf, then it falls into what's called lagh and fudul. It falls into the futile, wasteful, pointless activity. And tazkiyah is very much also about trimming all of this excess fat in our life. It's very important that we sit on the musalla, we spend more time, for the men to spend more time in the masjid before or after salah, that we sit and read books. We spend time disconnected from the screen and disconnected from the affairs of the world. Again, not all of our life should be like that, but there should be time in which we spend that is disconnected from the screen, disconnected from the affairs of the world, and focused on something in deen. It can be dhikr, can be ibadah, can be ilm, can be Quran, can be tafsir, can be hadith, can be seerah, can be fiqh, can be Islamic history, can be biographies, can be proper Islamic Sharia philosophy. There's so many things to learn. And mashallah, so many ulama have written so many works. So many ulama have written things in English even. So many ulama and others have translated authentic works in English. I was reflecting the other day that there's so much available in English now in 2020 that was not available in my time in the early 1990s when I was trying to begin my journey on Deen of Islam. I think I would have been overwhelmed by the amount of stuff, the amount of literature that is available. And alhamdulillah, at that time, there was hardly any use of screen at that time. But at the same time, we didn't have these type of books that are available. So I think we all have to purify ourselves from some of the hype, hysteria that can take place due to digital media, social media, whatever you want to call it. And we have to become people of reflection, people of introspection, people of contemplation, people of ibadah, people of ilm. Because those are the real attributes that we can have istiqamah in. So we should set a time in our day, and this is very beneficial. And people do this for almost everything they want to be successful at in dunya, whether it's exercise, whether it's studies, whether it's their work or profession or career, whether it's their children or the housework. They will always schedule and set a time where that activity has a priority. There has to be times in which we set for our ibadah and our ilm, our worship, or our learning, our reflection, that has such a priority that we will not even touch the phone or read the news in those times. Otherwise, we are not going to be in any way serious about our deen, and we won't be able to have resolve. And then what happens then is when a person has a crisis or a difficulty in their life, they will fall back. So the person who is already too glued to the screen, when they have a difficulty or a crisis in their life, they will fall back on the screen. If before they spent 1 hour on YouTube, now they will spend 3 hours on YouTube. If before they spent 1 hour surfing, they'll spend 2 hours surfing. If before they used to just check or write or reply to WhatsApps, now they will surf everybody's status and everybody's history and everybody's feed. They will go through old feeds. But that person who in their normal state had set a time of prayer where they sat on the musalla and they accessed the Islamic tradition, the Islamic historical, scholarly, spiritual tradition, means kind of disconnecting from 2020, disconnecting yourself from contemporary reality. Then when crisis and difficulty hits them, they will spend more time on the musalla, more time reciting Quran, more time making dua, more time praying nafil, more reading about the lives of the great Muslimin and the many trials and tribulations that they went through, which makes our petty, our small, relatively speaking, small and minor setbacks and difficulties seem petty in comparison. They'll be connected to a ummah, a turath, an ummah, which is, yes, the ummah that is alive today, but also the entire historical ummah of 1400 years. And this is very important for our tazkiyah. Otherwise, if we become people, which is the way all of humanity is becoming because of technology, that we're always living in the moment. The moment is fleeting. Wal asri innal insana lafi khusr. Every moment is passing. Every moment is spent. The very progression of time, the waning of time, this is all meant by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when Allah ta'ala takes in His divine majesty and divine wisdom a qasam, an oath. He invokes asr, the time, the passing of time, the waning of time, the fading of time. And we feel that in every moment of our day and our life. Most of us will be shocked that it's 2020. Most people are shocked it's already March. Most people are shocked, oh, Ramadan's already coming. And the more and more we allow ourselves to slip into this mindset where time is not just fleeting, time is flying past us. It's very difficult to talk about this concept of tazkiyah. And that is why, yes, we have to appreciate this. No matter, and I try to do that for myself, and I try to do that for all of us, to try to make tazkiyah accessible, to make it relevant, to make it, address contemporary issues or quote unquote educated people, professionals. But the reality is, the true deep tazkiyah really has nothing to do with any of that. It's a timeless, Deen of Islam is a timeless truth. And that means the way that the Sahaba Kiram, Tabi'in, Tabai Tabi'in, the ulama, Siddiqeen, Salihin, Awliya, Muttaqeen, Zakireen of this ummah, the way they travel on Sirat al-Mustaqim, which was a very focused way, a very dedicated, committed way, a very not so ephemeral, fleeting way, that deep, sustained focus and consciousness is the same thing me and you are going to have to do. We cannot excuse ourselves that we're in the 21st century, or modernity, or secularism, or we're in a minority in a non-Muslim country, all those things are true, and all those things have realities. But there should be an element in our life, and that's why I stress these two things: the musalla, and by the musalla, so the prayer mat, right? The ja namazes, they say in Persian, Urdu, that our space or place or time or mentality of ibadah, and some aspect of our life of study and reflection and contemplation on the timeless deen. Those authors whose works have lasted centuries, those commentaries of Quran that people have drawn upon for centuries. We have to plug into that. And that's missing. That's missing in my talks. That's missing in any contemporary speaker, YouTube that you listen to. And fine, we can do that, and we should do that. But there should also be some connection to this timeless tradition, because that's the only antidote. So timelessness is on one extreme, and then this extreme sense of flying time, fleeting time, waning of time, passing of time. And the more we live in a time, right, the day and age that you and me live in, where time is flying, the more we need to connect into these timeless things. Alhamdulillah, and again, maybe the men can understand this a bit better. When you enter the masjid for, let's say, Fard Salah, for Asr and Jaman, you linger a bit. Even if you stay for just 5 minutes after Salah, you will feel the depth in those 5 minutes. You will feel the intense weight, and we feel it more now because the normal 5 minutes we pass flies so fast. So we are people who can actually appreciate the depth of ibadah, the depth of places of ibadah, whether it's the masjid or an alcove in your home, or simply sitting on the prayer mat in your home, or if it's connecting to a timeless text or historical text, or a text that has lasted centuries. You will feel the barakah and the weight and the intensity of that time. And so one very important thing then for our tazkiyah is we need to trim the fat. We need to tone down our excessive interaction. We have to be wary of israf, of lagh, of fudul, and we have to try to be more firm and steadfast on, even if we can't do it for so long, it doesn't matter. I've said 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, 20 minutes. It can be in the minutes. And yes, and we may find it more difficult to do than hours that we can easily pass on the screen. But we have to build up those minutes of intense worship and of intense study and reflection. Otherwise, we will fall into an abyss, and years will pass, months will pass. We will have done hours of surfing, but none of that really makes it into our good deeds in our book of deeds. We have to reclaim our time. We have to purify our time. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah. May He put blessing in our time and our efforts. May He give us hikmah and wisdom to make the right decisions. May He protect us from the addiction and allure and attraction of all of these other things, even the permissible of them. May Allah always guide us to that which is preferred, that which is better, that which is best, that which is ideal, that which will bring us closer to Him and His pleasure and His qurb, and closer to the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and closer to the sharia of Islam. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.